Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Home Service Greatness. You have John and John here today. We're at episode number 13, and we have a really special guest with us today. This is our really good friend, Tim Crouch. He's got his hands in a lot of different businesses, but we're here to talk about something really important for you all. It's how to add an extra $250,000 to your home service business. We're ready to rock and roll. Johnny, take it away.
Man, I'm so excited to be back here. We are super pumped to add as much value as we can for you guys. But today's episode, it's special because this isn't somebody that we're bringing on that we just met or we just booked the podcast. Like, this is somebody our roots run deep with. He's our boy, Tim. He's been a client of Mr. Pipelines for probably 10 plus years. And even more important, he's been an incredible friend, business partner, so on and so forth. First of all, bro, welcome to the show. And if you could, tell us a little bit about yourself for somebody who might not be as familiar with Tim Crouch.
Going way back to my childhood, I went through a lot of adversity. I paralyzed my arm, my left arm, and I was told I was never going to be able to use it again. I overcame that. It took me about 2 years to recover. And in doing so, I kind of developed the mindset that anything's possible. So I just kind of had like a heart for helping people. And later on, when I was about 18, I got into personal training. Did that for about a year. One of my clients did gutters. I ended up falling into the gutter business. I was in the gutter business for 20 plus years. Built a very successful company locally here in Palm Beach County. And John and John kind of helped spearhead that with me with Pipeline, and sold last year and started Gutter Growth. So we started a mastermind group for the gutter industry, and starting a couple other businesses, and one of them is Christmas lights.
One of my favorite things about you is knowing that, dude, nobody gave you anything in life. You fought for everything you have, and it shows. You can just tell. You're a servant leader. You give it everything you got to kind of like lift people up, show up for people. Dude, that's one of my favorite things about you. So I admire you much, man, and I'm so glad that you're with us today. So let me ask you, Tim, you sold the business, you built something really special, then you sold the business, you exited, and you decided to head into the holiday lighting space, right? Let's talk about that. Why did you end up jumping and choosing this vertical?
I was just I sold the gutter industry, or sold the gutter business, and I was looking to get into something, and I just kept seeing people from the gutter cleaning industry and the pressure washing industry. I seen that a lot of them were getting into Christmas lights for an add-on service. So I got pretty interested in it and decided to go to a Clippa event and did some training. And I was like, yeah, I'm all in. I'm just going to do this.
Man, you had that idea, you saw the opportunity, and since you freed up a lot of space on your plate when selling the gutter business, this was the perfect time to jump into it, man. And we were proud of you. I know we'll get into some of the finer details in a bit, but just real quick, the fact that you set a goal for this first year in Christmas lighting, not having any experience other than the training that you went through with Clippa, and you blew that goal out of the water, man. That's just a phenomenal thing, and it tells a lot about you and your character as a person.
So my goal was actually $500,000. I set it really high, but I ended up closing at $247,000, and that was a huge win for a seasonal business. It's only like a 6-week window for production.
Yeah, your first time around, man, to hit that number, that's very impressive. We're proud of you.
What was the challenge? Like, you got your hands into it. You started stringing some lights. You started making sense of that game.
I don't think I had the slow mentality at all. I'm just like, I got to do this.
It doesn't do anything slow.
It's true.
No. Sometimes it's good because you guys will slow me down on things. So like sometimes it's a good trade and a bad trade, but I used it for good this time. So
Tim, you got the first season is underway. Take us back to that experience that you had. You set that goal for your business. What were some of the first steps that you took in order to make sure that you can achieve that goal?
So the first thing, I didn't want to wing it. So I'm very big on education, and you got to invest in yourself. I mean, people won't blink twice about signing up to $40,000, $100,000 for a college degree that, I don't know, 70% of the time it doesn't go anywhere. So you got to invest in yourself, and it's something that I seen that, it was a service-based industry. I already know the service-based businesses. So I like the model of it. I like the model how it was reoccurring revenue. And
Sure.
because I'm used to the gutter industry where it's a one-off service. And so the model was really attractive to me. And then so once I kind of got attracted to that, I went to a Clippa event, made sure I got my education on how to actually install it. I joined all the Christmas lights groups I could, and I made a lot of friends, and I asked a lot of questions. But I feel like the marketing part I had down. I knew how to grow the business, but I had to really understand the business so that way it worked well on an operational standpoint.
Yeah, if you can, touch on the branding a little bit, because first off, the brand that you have for the business is phenomenal. So what led you to decide on that name and decide ultimately on that brand?
I had this friend, and actually I met him because when I bought my first Isuzu truck for gutter professionals, he was the guy that sold it to me, and we just hit it off. He was a younger cat, and I kind of like been mentoring him. But I was on a phone call with him, and I told him what I was getting into, and he's like, "You should name it Griswold's Christmas Lights." And I'm like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
So he's like, "Oh, I didn't even know. I've never seen the movie." He's like, "Oh, it's a movie. It's like the greatest movie of all times." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, everybody watches it every year." So I'm like, "Well, let me look it up real quick." So I looked it up on Sunbiz, and me moving fast like I always do, I incorporated it within 5 minutes once I seen that no one had it. I'm like, "Done. I got it." So then I just kind of took it from there and started building out, getting someone to make the logo and, make it a real brand. But I think we really nailed it with the name, and I can't take any credit for it. Someone recommended it to me, and I'm like, that's it.
Make sure you pour out some milk, some Christmas cookies, whatever for that guy, man, because he really sets your path forward, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Let me ask, just staying on that brand for a minute, because I don't think sometimes people will grip on to the fact of how important your brand is. Oftentimes people say, you know what? I'm good at this service. I'm going to put it on Google Ads. I can do the service and move on. But you've been in the game for a long time. Touch on the importance of having a powerful brand and how that helps achieve your marketing and your sales goals.
It's very important because branding is like the public perception of you. And so that's what they have to go off of. And if you don't have a real good imaging is like everything. So if you could really nail it with the image and the name and all that initially, you could grow a company at a much faster rate. Like that's all I heard all season was how great my name was. And we had we had the trailer driving down with the crew. There's times on Highway 95 where people were asking us to slow down so they could take pictures of it, and they're pointing and laughing and rolling down the window and saying, "That's a great name." So, I mean, I know for sure that it had a lot to do with the success because it looks like a big company. And in fact, I nailed the branding so well that there was this job we were doing for an HOA. We were doing an entryway for their community. When we were doing the job, I was there with my crew, and the property manager and another guy was there on site. And he goes, "Hey, Tim, how long you guys been doing this?" I said, "This is my first season." And they didn't say nothing. And like 5 seconds later, the guy next to him goes, "I think he's joking." And I didn't say nothing. I just, I let it go, but they didn't believe me,
That's a good point.
It's a difference between looking like you're a startup and a bucket contractor that, is desperate for work and, might not give the best service versus looking like you've been around for 10, 20 years. And it makes them trust you better when you kind of nail that branding.
I wonder if a lot of home service businesses, they're not reluctant, but they're somewhat hesitant to jump into a new industry because the challenges of like establishing yourself in the community, establishing yourself amongst the competition in a service like this. But how does that really play into your success? If you're saying you didn't really have much resistance from customers, being that it was your first season, you were well versed in the business, you knew what you were talking about. Is that pretty much safe to say?
Yeah, it's just the training's so important. So to jump into one of these businesses and not have the proper training and not learning not only how to do the installs, but how to do the takedowns and all the systems that you need to streamline. It's important to really nail that in the beginning, I feel like, because if you don't do that, like if you're just trying to start up but you want to cheap out and not spend $1,600 on a course, like you're going to still lose that $1,600. Like, it's expensive not to do it. So I think just really nailing the education on it kind of helped drive everything forward as far as the processes go.
Tim, you talked on systems. I love that, dude. I'm one of the biggest proponents that you could ever meet in terms of building scalable businesses, and it all starts with systems. So let's live in that for a second. How, kind of brick by brick, if you will, if you can kind of unpack, how can people start to add this type of revenue to their business?
So I think this is a real good business for an add-on service, especially because a lot of gutter companies or clean out companies or pressure washing companies, they might slow down in the winter. Just naturally, people are focusing on the holidays, so they're not focusing on services, and they're spending money on Christmas. So it's just they're not really focused on it. It's not that they won't spend money, but it's not the focus during that time of the year. So I think Christmas lights is a perfect add-on business because you could add it on at a time where you may need extra work for your staff.
So you're able to add it on. You're able to say, you know what, this is a good thing to bolt on to an existing service company because they have the staff. Things get slow. They need to fill capacity. I love that.
And it's real minimal on equipment. So, I mean, you could run it out of a pickup truck as long as you have ladder racks. I went the trailer route because I just like to have everything in there and just not have to think so much about inventory every morning, just having it well stocked because it's a short season. So, I mean, it's just go, 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 go. So it's like, I'd rather have that trailer just stocked because I'll produce more. If there's a neighbor that needs something, I mean, we could just go ahead and jump to that job. It's definitely a short period of time that you have to knock everything out. But yeah, no, going back to it being a good add-on business, I mean, you already have the equipment, you already have the employees. The only thing you're really missing is the sales. So if you could plug in a system to start getting these jobs coming in, it's, you know, you could fit it in throughout the week. I went real big and I did that with one crew. I did $250,000 with one crew. So it's possible, you know, if you got 3 or 4 trucks going on, but towards the winter, you slow down a crew, it's real possible just to stick that crew on Christmas lights. Now you're not losing that employee and you're bringing in revenue, but it's not just revenue, it's reoccurring revenue. And we did it with the leasing model. So most of that expense on the material, you're going to have the first year. And then it gets even sweeter year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, because you only have the labor on it and you're going to charge the same price as you did when you initially put it up because it's a leasing model. A company doesn't have to do $250,000 like I did. Like I went real aggressive. Let's scale it back a little. Let's say that you want to add on $50,000, $60,000 revenue. That year 2 and year 3, year 4, you may have $10,000 cost in labor. You know, so now you got $50,000 more profit margin to your company every year. That's just going to be reoccurring. And now your company is making more money and it's a reoccurring revenue. So it adds more value to the business because any business with reoccurring revenue is valued higher than any one-off service business.
Tim, on that recurring revenue side, are the customers signing an agreement for year after year, or is it something that you just touch base with them that next season?
So from my understanding of just the research that the industry's done, there's a lot of guys that, like a lot of the Clippa guys and people training, they got the numbers dialed in. It has about a 90% retention rate. So this is an emotional buy where gutters are really that emotional. It's like they need it. It's raining. You know, they're trying to protect their house, but there's no emotion to it. The customers that you're going to get for Christmas lights, they couldn't see a Christmas without lights. So if you really nail the service and do a great job and you're there for them, and, you know, if something happens and the lights go out and you're there within 24 hours to 48 hours and you're making sure that they're enjoying these lights during the Christmas season, they're going to be emotionally tied to you as a company and they just want to use you every year. So some people do lock them in. I didn't necessarily do that, but I am going to get 90% of them back. And I kind of saw that during the takedowns because everybody was saying, can't wait to see you next year.
The business is up and running. If we were to take a step back and kind of bird's eye view oversight on how this past season went for you, let's talk about how the marketing became successful and like what helped you acquire those customers.
Okay, so I didn't get too carried away. I did 3 things. I am aggressive because I look at things as like I need leads, and I know that I'm only going to close like 20% of them because the Christmas lights industry, it's expensive to do lights, so your closing ratio is not going to be as high. So you can expect about a 20% margin or 20% close rate. If you have that, you're doing pretty good in the Christmas lights business. Also, it's 90% chance that they're coming back. So you're not just selling them for 1 year, you're selling them for life. We did Facebook ads. I had that pumping at a high budget. I think I put the budget at like $3,000 a month. It only spent like $750 a month, but I got quite a bit of leads off of it. I think 35 jobs I ended up getting off of Facebook. We did 108. Street signs, I went real heavy on the street signs. We ended up putting out 800 throughout the season. And so everybody's seen my signs everywhere. I put them on 95 exits, on the highway exits, and I put them in plazas. I didn't like putting them on street corners because it upsets the city, and they start calling you and they start threatening you with fines. So if you put it in plazas, it's private property. It takes a while for the employees to take it down, and generally the people in the plazas just don't care. So they stay there they're going to last longer in those areas. So I did that, and I'd say a third of the business came from street signs, which I was really surprised of. And then I had a little website that I ended up running AdWords on, and I think I spent $7,000 on AdWords throughout the season.
Out of all those, what was your best ROI?
Well, definitely the most serious customers come from AdWords, and believe it or not, the street signs. So I feel like the Facebook ads, I still did well off of them. I did, but I just feel like they're not as serious as a lead because it might just be an impulse thing. And when they're actually typing it into Google on AdWords, they already know what they want. They're just trying to get a quote out there. So they tend to be a little bit more serious. But yeah, just the 3 of those. And then we also did like door hangers. Like if we did a job, we're going to pass out door hangers on 20 houses around the job. I used Dope Marketing to send out mailers. And so every job that we did, as soon as we invoiced it, it would trigger to mail out to 20 houses on the same street. That did pretty good, but I would say that it was maybe 5% of the business that it brought in.
It wasn't just marketing. It wasn't just branding. I know you're a really big advocate of building relationships, networking, kind of like increasing your network, if you will. How important is that for a company just starting out in this type of industry?
I mean, one of my favorite sayings is your network is your net worth. So, I mean, networking is everything. You want to build the relationships, and you don't want to go about networking as what can I get from it type perspective. If you go at networking in a perspective of what can you do for them, and you're helpful and have a helpful nature, it's just natural for someone to want to help you back. And it kind of builds that relationship where it's a win-win, and you're not just trying to take, because no one likes to get approached for someone who's just looking at, what's in it for them. So I think that a good perspective on networking is, looking at it as how can you help people? And, it's not always just going in for the sale, especially when it comes to networking per se.
Yeah, it goes into what you kind of how you guide your life from your adversity from when you were younger. It's that abundance mindset, that growth mindset, that giving mindset. It's funny how that's taken you all the way to this journey, and you're still applying that stuff today, man.
Well, I think that, overcoming a paralyzed arm, I think it gave me the perspective of anything is possible. And, those doctors, they told me that, and it's not the thing to tell someone who's trying to struggle to, survive or overcome anything, but they tend to be a little bit pessimistic. But they told me you're never going to use it again. So I had to overcome that voice of them saying that but I honestly didn't believe that. I don't know why. I can't say why, but I didn't. And so it made me realize that that's the biggest thing, is knowing that anything's possible. And you have to go at things with that perspective in order to make them possible. It's very self-defeating when you shut yourself down immediately.
As we think ahead, Tim, as you think ahead into the next season, have you put any thoughts into your revenue goal yet?
I'm definitely going to more than double. And the reason why I'm going to more than double is because as good as I had things dialed in for the first season, there was still like a 2.5 week period through that season that I couldn't get to very many estimates. I couldn't get to maybe like 40 or 50 of them, maybe more than that. So we did like 600 and I think it was like 610 estimates. I could have did another 80. So I know that my revenue could have been higher. This year, that's not going to happen again because I'm going to have more systems in place to make sure that I get to everything. So I'm looking at least at a minimum doubling, but I'm going to try to shoot for 600,000.
I'm interested to know from an admin perspective. So somebody's thinking about how to grow this business, but they're thinking, I don't know how to handle the phone calls or what CRM am I going after? Like, I'm kind of confused on that side. Tim, what advice do you have for them?
I used Jobber for a CRM this year, and it was amazing. I was able, the thing about you want to, you got such a short season, so you don't want to have anything waste your time. So I was able to lock in their credit card with the deposit. As soon as we were done with jobs, I could just invoice and collect. I didn't have to call them and ask for it. And, this whole process that could waste 5 or 6 hours of my whole week when you got 20 customers to try to collect from. So I streamlined things to make it faster in the system, and also like options, right? Because they don't really know. So you could go out there and you could see all these other things that they could do to help bring the vision alive as far as making it a beautiful Christmas experience for them. And, I would use options. So I was able to put line items on there, things that they might not have known that they wanted, but now they had a chance to go through, and it caused a lot of upsells. So Jobber was great for that, and also communication, text on the way. I definitely don't recommend going at it without a CRM.
And Jobber was able to take the payments. They could do everything right from that same platform?
Right from that same platform. So literally right when we're finishing up putting on lights, we're going in, closing out that job, clicking invoice and collecting. Never have to think about it again. You're moving on to the next job.
That's awesome.
I think you touched on something powerful right there. I think one of the things that John and I kind of has helped us in any business we've been involved in is we don't like to give Mrs. Jones an ultimatum on anything. For us, it's not a yes or a no. It's an A, B, or C. It's a good, better, or best. Do you want the car in red or you want the car in blue? So it's like, is that what you mean when you're saying you're not just saying, here's the quote, you're giving them options? Like, can you elaborate on that real quick?
Yeah, a good majority of them, like they're kind of expecting you to be the expert and the designer here. So they might not even know what they want, So you go there and they're like, well, I definitely want the roof line, but I don't know. And then a lot of these people think they're Clark Griswold. So they're like, I want this lit and that lit and this lit and that lit. And I'm like, well, I don't know what their budget is. So
did you really have to? Did you have to do the Griswolds plug? Nice.
Yep.
Not mad at you, bro. Sorry.
But yeah, no, they did. So, I mean, some of the people they wanted like everything lit, and they didn't realize this is going to be like a $15,000 ticket here. So it's just, you have that challenge with some people that just want everything, and you're going to have to kind of pipe them down. Then you got the challenges of people that just don't know what they want at all.
Is there anything you could touch on as far as like a visual demonstration or any sort of proposal that was visual to the customer?
So what I would use is Company Cam. So when I was at the job site, I would take a picture of it, and they have like drawing. You could draw where everything's going to go. I would mark it all out, and then under each line item, I would upload a picture of the area that we were talking about. So if it was lighting up this tree, I would have a picture of that tree. If it was a roof line, it'd be more far back, and I would have the roof line drawn out.
What advice would you give to anyone that's possibly considering adding this service onto their existing home service company?
Don't be cheap. Get training, period. It's going to make you back that money throughout the year, and it's very important.
Your brand was super important for your success. Start thinking the name. You don't suggest they run Christmas lights under their existing business. You want them to, or you would advise that they create a whole separate company just for this.
Yeah, you could do a DBA if you want to run the finances through it. I prefer to have it completely separate, personally. But, you might need to do a DBA. It could be for like workers' comp reasons. It might be easier to run it through the existing company. So I don't know if one way is right or wrong. But definitely the branding, because with that DBA, you could use a different name. The name's everything, and the logo and the look of it and the branding. I would really focus on that and just making sure that you really nail that to where you look like a professional company. Like I said, you want to go into it looking like you've been around for 20 years. It's just going to curve that trust issue. Because these people don't know. If you're a brand new company, that kind of scares everybody away. And if you don't look like a brand new company, you're not going to kind of give that feel to them.
At this stage, we covered your marketing best tips for year one, how to handle some of the admin side of things. You talked about how to handle some of the production side of things, making sure your SOPs are dialed in, and you're constantly making things more efficient. We talked about some of the sales processes and strategies that helped you win in year one. Dude, that's a lot of stuff to take in. For me, it's a little bit of analysis paralysis, but I can tell you that like once I'm starting to process it and understand it, I'm like, dude, it's not as complicated as many people may make it out to be. So you and I have talked behind the scenes a little bit, and I know it's been an initiative of yours to lift more people up in the gutter business that when they constantly want to grow their revenue. So is it safe to say if anybody has any questions or whatever, they can reach out to you and you can kind of guide them down that path?
Absolutely. I'm all about helping you. So if you got any questions about lights whatsoever, especially if you're a gutter company, reach out to me.
It's awesome, bro. How can people reach out to you? What's the best way? Social? Is it through an email? Like, how do they get to you?
It's real easy to reach out to me on social. Just shoot me a DM. I check my requesting messages often, so I won't miss it. Just, I guess the main thing that sticks out with me with the Christmas lights is just the education part of it, because I've seen it go both ways. I've seen people that did the education, they always are more successful their first season.
And I'll add to that by saying that because the education's so important, I mean, Johnny, we've been aligned with Clippa for, 5+ years. We know the owner, we know the team behind it, the Clippa girls. I mean, they're incredible. So this podcast is going to be deployed prior to the next ClippaCon. So from my perspective, if you are in need or you're seeking like your next training or like moment to grow, guys, visit ClippaCon 2024. It's in San Diego. I'll be speaking out there. Tim, Johnny, I know you guys will be out there. From Ryan Fox to Matt. I mean, there are just some killers out there that are going to be pouring in and serving you guys at a high level. So that would be a really good piece of advice for me, just to kind of piggyback off what you said, Tim.
And then if somebody needs some information on a course, I don't think the ClippaCon is going to have a course per se. So they may have to go strictly to a course afterwards, even if they do go to ClippaCon. But reach out to me. I could put you in touch with Courtney with Clippa, and she could definitely get you set up. They have them in different areas throughout the country.
Yeah, they do offer several trainings throughout the year. Different locations too. That's a great point.
Yeah, I know they got one in Nashville in September, but they have them in several different locations, and I could reach out to her and get you guys connected.
It's awesome having you on board, man. Like John mentioned earlier, a great friend of ours. We have a lot of great things on the radar for us to accomplish this year. Big things coming our way, but for you to take time and jump on the podcast with us today is very important, very special to us, man. So we greatly
appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
So Tim, thanks again, dude. Had a lot of fun with you. Love spending the time as always, bro. So it's safe to say that until next time,
we out.
We out.